Dark Souls first dragged its hollow carcass across our screens back in 2011, enrapturing millions with its combination of thoughtful gameplay, obtuse storytelling, and challenging boss fights that make you throw a controller. Since then, dozens of developers have attempted to draw from the trusty old Dark Souls well in an attempt to dredge up that little bit of FromSoft magic while adding in their own twist to set themselves apart. We've now seen 2D Souls, Techno Souls, Low Poly Souls, Puppet Souls, and everything in between. But techno-magical body-swapping combo Souls? That's a new one.
Today we're talking about Deathbound, the debut title from Trialforge Studio. We first took a peek at the pre-alpha several months back, and at the time it seemed like a promising and original take on the often emulated, but rarely mastered, Soulsborne formula. Will freaky monster designs and Morphin Time mechanics be enough to set Deathbound apart from the pack? Let's find out.
Just to be clear, some of the footage you'll see here will be from the pre-release version. Special thanks goes out to Trialforge Studios for providing us with a key. And as always, if you want to support our efforts to shine a lantern into the depths of gaming, we'll talk about some ways you can support our channel near the end of the video. But for now, it's time to strap on that shield and slap on your very tallest helmet as we dance and parry our way through the forbidden landscape in Deathbound. My name is Boss Sauce.
And I'm Rollinkunz. And together, we are the two-headed hero. Deathbound takes place in the troubled realm of, oh boy, Zymenol. Is it Zymenol?
I think it is Zymenol.
Zymenol. I believe that I have like 20 milligrams Zymenol in my cabinet.
I have it in my bloodstream. Let's go!
Anyway, Zymenol is a land locked into constant war between several factions of religious zealots. Players are tossed into the clanky metal boots of Throne Guilliman, a high-ranking commander in the brutal Church of Lady Death. Mr. High Helmet here is tasked with spearheading the siege on the city of Akratia, one of the last remaining bastions of the Life Cult, and dispensing some Inquisition-style justice to their leader, a powerful mage named Sauron.
As the followers of death close in, Sauron completes some kind of mysterious ritual that cuts a building in half with a big green beam. This causes massive tremors that shake the very foundations of the ruins. With his team now crushed in the rubble, Throne executes the last survivor and battles his way towards the source of the disturbance, cutting through a host of abominations until he's killed by a deadly cutscene.
Wait, it's Sauron?
Yeah.
Sounds pretty dark. To his utter dismay, Throne is denied the sweet, sweet embrace of Lady Death and finds himself walking around once more like a sad Thanos. Things get worse from there. He now absorbs the souls, essences, of powerful dead champions, which all get packed up into his brain case like an apartment full of broke college students. And these aren't just underlings and subordinates. Some of his brain's new roommates have diametrically opposed beliefs and values.
From here, the mission becomes clear. Drag your host of unwilling participants through the streets, discover the cause of the unnatural creatures that have burst forth from the bowels of the burning city, and find a way to reverse this unliving curse so that you can finally drive the voices from your skull and get a little goddamn peace and quiet.
It's hard to have peace and quiet when unnatural creatures are bursting forth from your bowels. So yeah. This is not a smiley, happy, rainbow and sunshine kind of Dark Souls game. This is a grim, linear maze crawler filled with deadly abominations, tragic tales, and morally gray characters.
Anybody who's taken a sip of the FromSoft juice will immediately notice some similarities here, so let's just get those out of the way. Throne encapsulates the traditional sword and board knight, which makes for a good defensive fighting style. All your Soulsborne basics are covered. You got your light attack, you got your heavy attack, you got your block, your questionable parry, and your bloodborne dodge. This uncomfortable-looking handful of needles is basically your Estus flask, a rechargeable healing item. This weird alien satellite dish right here is your bonfire, a place where you can rest and level up. The levels themselves are intricately designed puzzle boxes filled with monsters, traps, and hidden shortcuts that fold back on previously visited locations. But beyond this, Deathbound starts to take on an identity of its own.
Over on the left, you'll spot what looks to be a fairly standard, yet stylish, health bar. This little box represents both your health cap and stamina limit, meaning the more damage your clanky little knight takes, the less he can dodge and strike back. The measly health bar of a single bucket-headed zealot isn't going to be nearly enough to conquer the world of Deathbound, so it's a good thing he has a little help.
As Throne sucks up more tenants into his headspace, he gains the ability to transform into new bodies.
Let's do it, guys! Right. Morphin Time!
Each of these new brain buddies have their own movesets, special skills, and passives, as well as personalities, and I love the variety in their designs and playstyle. The assassin might be physically weak, but she has a handy crossbow and is the only character that can perform stealth takedowns. Evil Grandma summons the power of the elements to burn and freeze her enemies. And just check out the balls on this guy.
Fighters like Throne and the Spear Lady are pretty straightforward, but casters are a different story. Rather than relying on stamina alone, mages build up heat with every successive spell. Capping out the heat meter results in a magical backfire that damages your wizard, as well as everything else nearby. With a little clever gear swapping and the right upgrades, it's even possible to work this mechanic into a viable combat build. Just overheat that wizard and chuck him into a bunch of enemies.
Another big departure from the Soulsborne template here is the near complete lack of gear. Characters have set weapons, armor, and special moves. There's no massive piles of loot to sift through and mess around with. Most of the stuff that you can pick up is either a consumable or a bomb. However, you can hunt down a decent amount of upgradable relics and rings. These can provide some powerful bonuses, and sometimes have pretty good in-world flavor. But once I realized that the characters themselves were my arsenal, I really enjoyed the challenge of mastering all the different fighting styles. I'm not going to spoil all their little tricks and tactics, since discovering this for yourself is half of the fun, but suffice to say there's a pretty diverse crew that allows you to mix and match and make your own playstyle fairly easily, once you get far enough into the game to stumble across their lifeless bodies, of course.
You can swap around your party's positioning whenever you're at a phylactery. These weird glowing camera tripod things that you'll find strategically scattered around. This places them on the corresponding D-pad button, so you can easily change between them. And when I mentioned that each character has their own personalities, this isn't just for show. Placement matters.
Putting characters that share beliefs and causes next to each other can result in some heavy buffs, but neighbors that hate each other will drastically improve certain stats and abilities while reducing others. This results in the potential of some powerful and interesting party builds, sure, but the biggest advantage of this multi-character approach has to be the combo system.
See this big blue bar at the bottom? Big bottom blue bar? It fills up from dishing out damage or performing perfect last-moment dodges. When a segment is full, you can tag in one of your buddies with a button press mid-swing to unleash a powerful strike. When the whole bar catches fire, this combo strike turns into a morph strike, a special move that does a fat stack of damage to anything it hits, while also refilling the health of your other party members.
So you can kinda see how this all works together. You open up a fight by charging in with your favored lord or lady, you give and take a few hits, then you swap to keep your health and stamina up before finishing off your foes with a well-timed morph strike combo. It's a weighty, aggressive, deliberate combat loop that feels really satisfying to pull off. Good thing, too, because you'll need all these techniques to survive the game's trap-filled industrial dungeons and twisted monstrosities.
Excuse me.
Good push.
RPGs like this are always filled with crowds of creepy enemies to bash, and Deathbound features two main flavors: Death Church Crusaders and Monster Energy Drink Mutants. Functionally, a lot of enemies copy FromSoft's homework. There's a lot of different soldiers, bomb throwers, and inconveniently placed archers. And do we really need another spider enemy in a video game? Come on. At least there's an arachnophobia mode, but this just makes their legs invisible, which looks extremely silly and doesn't actually do anything to not trigger my arachnophobia.
Mission accomplished. To be fair, the game also has plenty of standout original designs here, and the green Essence Mancer monstrosities are the clear favorite. These creepy stilt-walking archers were a highlight for sure, and you can definitely tell the devs loved the giant green stretchy-armed Dalsim guy, since he shows up in a bunch of the game's promo materials. Any grizzled old Soulsborne veteran will talk you into a coma about the importance of animation quality and hitboxes, and for the most part I'd say Deathbound delivers on this. But there's one thing every Souls-like tries to nail and usually fails at: boss encounters. I gotta say, I was not super into the design of the first boss. It's kinda got that Play-Doh sculpture left out in the sun look to it. A blind monster that swings wildly and seems to listen to your footsteps is a cool idea, but the cutscenes when it changed phases lasted longer for me than the battle itself. I absolutely melted it on the first try, thanks to a few out-of-the-way leveling items I stumbled on earlier. And actually, this does kind of ply into another point where exploration in this game is usually rewarded by items that can absolutely overpower you at certain points. Fortunately, later bosses proved to be more challenging and unique, even when the FromSoft influences clearly shine through. The game's overall difficulty is a bit on the lighter side, but I still found myself getting filtered from time to time with a few controller thrower encounters. Tinkering with my lineup and the clever use of items eventually got me through, and if that still failed, well, there's always the nuclear option. Wait, do you smell that? Oh, it's a ripe one. I think it's cheese.
Outside the rather basic boss arenas, level designs do a good job of placing challenging encounters by mixing up the enemies and battlegrounds in thoughtful ways. You're rarely fighting more than a handful of bad dudes at once, but there's plenty of sweaty moments when, say, archers on the rooftop are shooting logs into you while a trio of swordsmen attempt to shave you into lunch meat. The various techno dungeons and ruined cityscapes do a nice job with visual cues, putting enemies or treats just out of reach until the player finally figures out a way to get to them. It was pretty fun to get back in the rhythm of dodge rolling through piles of barrels and crates in search of secret items, kicking down ladders and opening hatches to free up hidden shortcuts back to those glowy life sticks to spend your gathered essence and level up before facing the next gauntlet of horrors.
Progression takes place in a familiar spiderweb of skills that slowly unlocks as more characters become available. Spending essence from fallen enemies allows the player to buy into passives like +1 stamina or +6 health and so on. It's nothing too exciting, honestly. It's hard to feel the weight of your decisions with such small gains. And there's no respec option, so you're stuck with what you pick for life.
For life.
For life.
Your whole life.
But in the long run, it's possible to lean into your preferred playstyles and favorite characters a little bit more by making strategic purchases.
Each fighter also has talent points, which are unlocked by hunting down and touching their respective ghost cutscenes. Boop! This is where it gets more interesting. You can do some cool stuff like make the big guy cause fire damage whenever he catches fire, or give Eddie Gordo a small invincibility window on attacks. Or buy into other fun perks that really change the roles of these characters in your group. These powerful memory fragments can only be touched by the corresponding character, providing a compelling reason to track down these extra story elements in order to fill in some more of the background details about Deathbound's world and the major players in the Cult of Life and Church of Death.
Beyond the opening motion graphic cutscene and a few rare in-game cinematics, the game does its storytelling in two main ways: dialogues and ghost cutscenes. Excuse me. These are sort of like walking simulator flashbacks that give insights into the shattered realm of Zieminal, as well as the histories and motivations of the major players within. Big ghost cutscenes called reveries occur whenever Throne and Squad touch another one of the dead champions. Reveries act as a montage of the character's past life. They're made up of memories from before they met their untimely end. Smaller ghost cutscenes take place when touching memory fragments, as I mentioned before. Some of these can't even be accessed until you hit New Game Plus, since you won't have all the characters unlocked yet, so there's a reason to come back around if you want to try and tie up all the loose ends and find out how each character met their untimely demise.
There isn't much in the way of side quests due to Deathbound's linear design, and the plot is largely gated off by conquering bosses. Excuse me. So sorry. But I was pleasantly surprised to see the occasional narrative choice pop up here and there. A few of these decisions just allow you to grab an item or two, but there's actually a major plot choice that's handled in this same way. So, pay attention to them. Quit smashing B button. Or pay the price.
Deathbound's world contains a decent amount of environmental storytelling as well. The city is covered in glowing billboards and rusted traffic signs, as well as the odd techno buildings of a different construction. There's burned out cars lining the cracked pavement of the city streets, and worn flat-screen TVs within the humble cubic techno apartments, but then there's also massively overgrown trees and makeshift war camps. Passing mentions of the First Men imply that there was some sort of First Men that had an apocalypse go down in the distant past, and this new medieval society molded around the Church of Death has somehow poked up from the ruins of the old, like a flower growing up through a parking lot.
The game's opening cutscene makes it clear that Solon, chief among Essence Mancers and head of the Cult of Life, is responsible for triggering the massive anomaly that causes these abominations to rise. But what exactly is an Essence Mancer? They seem to be powerful mages born with the innate talent to infuse life back into the dead, disrupting the natural order. This power comes with a price. Many Essence Mancers only seem to be able to survive with the help of medical devices and respirators, or have painful green sores all over their bodies.
Good luck.
And the price that's paid for those that they resurrect...
well... ew. The Church of Lady Death, on the other hand, is filled with zealots that are diametrically opposed to the life cult and all it represents. But the Inquisition-style tactics they employ are nothing short of atrocities.
Are we the bad guys?
They constantly crusade against neighboring nations, control their lands with an iron fist, and make a habit of barbecuing anyone with a shred of sympathy for the life cult. Akratya was one of the final bastions of the cult, and the Deathians are making a huge push to cut the head of the cult from its body.
So yeah, ultimately you'll need to make a choice between the two factions near the end of the game, which has an effect on the outcomes of the final chapter. But no one really seems to be the good guy here. Much like in life, the life cultists use their powers to pervert nature, and the Church of Death are brutal, violent oppressors. It's kind of hard to pick a side. This makes the story feel rather joyless and macabre, which I guess is pretty appropriate for a game like this.
The story might be serious, but the game's designs are bright and vibrant. The character and monster designs definitely look dated, to be sure, but have this shiny, stylized, low-poly PS2 nostalgia quality to them. On the plus side, the feel of these characters with their cloth physics and ornate jewelry and shiny surfaces really brings back warm fuzzy memories of early 2000s gaming. On the minus side, we have people with Play-Doh hair. The lack of lip syncing on the faces also comes off a little bit strange, since they're often shown in extreme close-up during some of the in-game cutscenes.
We already talked about the enemy designs, but I can't overstate how much I love the environments here. Techno-magic post-apocalypse has only been done in a few games, and I really wish we'd see more of it. The game's whole vibe feels like a forgotten, unreleased Piranha Bytes or Spider Studios joint, and that's really cool. I sort of wish some of the locations were more opened up for exploration, like this awesome sports arena. When you see this, don't you want to go walk around in the stands and find where the hot dogs were sold, or are currently still stored, and visit the piss troughs in the bathrooms? Maybe that's where the hot dogs are. But we don't get to find out. I understand that this decision was probably made to keep the design more along the lines of a tight corridor crawler, rather than an Elden Ring competitor, and that's, a huge scope issue, of course, too, but still, some set-piece exploration might have provided some nice breathing room to even out the game's pace.
Sound design is, well, a little more uneven. A lot of it's good, especially the ambience in some of the indoor locations. The sound of hammer hitting face is highly satisfying, of course, as is the crunch of a freeze bomb stopping someone in their tracks. Other sounds are a bit less impressive. Backstabs and riposts make this noise that reminds me of biting into a nice crunchy apple. The first boss has this strange, muted, unthreatening roar. This is Roar of Kitten, not Roar of Tiger. And then there's the voice acting. There's a lot of voiceover, and about half of them are convincing.
I ain't no lady, love, but I'm a fine-looking strumpet, aren't I?
Yes, ma'am.
Theron has a fittingly stoic performance.
For goodness sake! Devils!
Evil Grandma, Olivia, has this matronly tone with just an undercurrent of regal, condescending tinge.
I will have instructions for you and the others whenever I see fit.
But man, Annalipus the Assassin has maybe the silliest Cockney accent I've heard in a game in recent years.
Holy shite! Now, that's something you don't see every day.
Goddess. And some of the side characters, especially the children, are extremely grating kid impressions clearly done by adults.
What you reading, little brother?
Oh, hi, Quinlan. Well, this one's Moses Setula's history.
There's also this strange warbling effect for all the voiceovers in the ghost flashbacks that just sounds like something is wrong, like an improperly used effect or overcompression.
Word on the street is you're the Essence Monster's last volunteer. How's that been treating you?
You're damn right I gave them some of me essence.
I gave them 3/5 of my lifespan and I love them. I guess if I had to rate the voiceover, I'd say it's just north of a 90s anime dub out of 10.
It's over 9,000! 9,000?! There's no way that can be right!
But on the positive side, the soundtrack is great, even if we don't hear much of it. Pounding orchestral battle songs punctuate important boss fights, and the game's opening theme is this awesome, string-heavy piece full of deep violins and profound misery. Here, have a listen.
Deathbound has a lot going for it, but a few weird design choices keep it from true greatness.
To start, the basic healing item, the big dangerous needle pile, ends up being fairly useless since it sucks health away from your inactive party members to heal the one you're using. I ended up retiring it to the bottom of my inventory pretty early on and never touched it again since it was more efficient to rely instead on the morph strikes to keep my band healthy in battle. The parry window was a mystery to me for the entire game as well, so it ended up just being ignored. This might be more of a me problem since dodging was just so much easier than learning the patterns of every enemy and hoping to nail the right timing.
And for a game that encourages exploring nooks and crannies, it comes as a bit of a surprise that there's no fast travel. This feels like a sorely missed opportunity that you can't go visit previously discovered phylacteries to farm some essence and experiment with your lineup. As it stands, grinding out a few extra levels to take on a tough boss became a huge pain in some of the more maze-like areas.
There were also some technical and performance issues. A good amount of fights take place in tight spaces. While I appreciate getting a close-up of the bizarre enemies, there were some occasions where I found myself fighting with the camera instead. Some minor bugs also popped up during a couple of the boss encounters. Nothing game-breaking, but it did kneecap a boss run or two. Frame stutters popped up from time to time as well. This was mostly small weird stuff that usually happened when loading in a hub area. Deathbound might not be a perfect experience, but despite a few missteps and messy spots, the game still delivers on unique RPG action with an interesting story. Every time an ambush ended my run or a boss filtered me with a 12-hit combo, I got frustrated, sure. But then I took a deep breath, pounded my Monster Energy drink to get back in the right headspace, picked up that controller, and gave it one more try.
Due to its narrower focus, aggressive playstyle, and linearity, Deathbound feels more along the lines of a character action game like God of War, even in the moments when its Dark Souls DNA is clearly showing through. Like the Essence Mancer's hulking green monstrosities, this game is somewhat of a mutation in the Souls-like genre. And with New Game Plus and multiple endings on offer, there's a good amount of dodge rolling and corridor crawling on offer here. If you've gotten tired of Eldening all those rings and want to try out something a little different, Deathbound is definitely worth a stab.
So, here we are again. If you've come along this far as we trudge through these overgrown city streets, we'd like to thank you for spending your time with us. If you like what we're doing here, subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you want to help our little channel grow, take a second to like and share the video, and maybe leave a comment. You could tell us about your favorite Souls-like game, or let us know what other games take place in a techno-magic apocalypse. Or just tell us what you think the passive bonuses on this football helmet would be.
Plus 7 footballs. Better yet, duck your weary head out of the rain, hang up your sword, and warm yourself by the cozy fireplace of the Heroes Tavern over on Patreon. Just 2 measly doubloons per month gets you early access to all of our videos, and higher tiers gain access to additional exclusive perks and bonuses. Our deepest gratitudes go out to all the proud champions that continue to support us on Patreon and Ko-Fi. Thanks.
Highest praises go to our champion at the Seat of Honor level, Wolfgang Bristol.
And we raise a tankard for all of those that support us at the Heroes table, including Jedusable,
KK,
and Wulpes,
and all the rest. It really means a lot to have your support in our little corner of the internet. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next Two-Headed Hero. It's Morphin Time!
Tyrannos Tabers Tooth Rex.
Diplodocus! Let's name obscure dinosaurs.
Ankylosaurus. Boy, oh boy. Name a dinosaur, Roland. Name a dinosaur.
Utahraptor.
Quick, name a dinosaur. Come up with one name of one dinosaur.
Come on, pretend you're 5 and name a dinosaur. Name a dinosaur.
I can't do it. I just can't.
Come on, buddy. Name one dinosaur. Give me one.
Edward.
You did it.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.